You are not who you think you are. The person you believe yourself to be, your name, your job, your story, your history, is merely a narrative you've repeated for so long that it feels like truth, but it is not you.
You think you know who you are. You say your name. You recall your past. You repeat the story you've told 1,000 times. But pause for a moment. What if none of that is actually you? What if the you you've spent years defending, refining, presenting is just a costume stitched together from memory and mirrors? A mask, worn so long you've mistaken it for your skin. Alan Watts once said, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth." It's a paradox, a cosmic joke. Because the more you chase a solid identity, something fixed, something certain, the further you drift from what you actually are. Who you think you are is a construction, a thought trying to observe itself, an echo pretending to be a voice. And this is why, when the story begins to collapse, when your titles fade, your roles shift, and your certainties crack, there's a strange kind of silence that arises. Not an emptiness, but a spaciousness. What remains when the story ends? What watches the thoughts come and go? What hears the inner dialogue, yet is untouched by it? That presence, that silent, observing awareness. It is not something you have. It is what you are. Before your name, before your history, before even the question, who am I? There is being, not the kind you can describe, but the kind you can only become still enough to notice. The truth is, you are not the person you think you are. What if the path is not about constructing a self, but about dissolving everything that isn't true? What if awakening isn't a grand revelation, but the slow, sacred erosion of everything borrowed? Because the soul, your essence, doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to be explained or defended. It simply is. But the ego, it's terrified of that kind of simplicity. It wants roles, it wants names, it wants proof, because it was built in a world where being wasn't enough. You had to earn your place. And so, without even realizing it, you began to trade authenticity for approval, bit by bit, smile by smile, until one day, you weren't sure if the one speaking was really you, or just the version of you that kept everyone else comfortable. Alan Watts often reminded us, we seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own, for we think in terms of languages and images which we did not invent, but which were given to us by our society. So how can you ever be yourself when the self you're clinging to was handed to you before you knew you had a choice? This is not a crisis. It's an invitation to peel back the layers, to meet yourself, not as an identity, but as an experience, not as something static, but as something alive, unfolding and forever beyond definition. You are not the image you've spent your life polishing. You are the awareness behind the image, the presence beneath the performance, the silence underneath the story. And the moment you stop clinging to who you think you are, you begin to feel what you've always been. And in that being, that pure, unadorned presence, something sacred begins to stir. Not an answer, not a definition, but a kind of stillness that doesn't ask for proof, you begin to understand what the mystics meant when they said the soul doesn't arrive, it reveals. It was never missing. It was simply hidden beneath all the noise you mistook for necessity. All your striving to become someone was never wrong. But it was never the point, because the soul is not something you build. It's something you remember. Alan Watts said, "The real you is not a puppet which life pushes around. The real deep down you is the whole universe." This is the turning point. The realization that you are not separate from life. You are life. Not the actor on the stage, but the awareness of the entire play. You don't need to hold it all together. You don't need to fix yourself into something tidy and acceptable. You only need to let go, to allow the unraveling, to trust that what is falling apart was never your foundation, just the scaffolding you no longer need. And when you stop fighting the collapse, when you allow the stillness to wash over you like nightfall, you'll notice something subtle but profound. You are still here. Not the mask, not the role, not the striving. Just here, breathing, aware, free. Not because you finally became someone, but because you remembered you were never just someone. You are not a thing. You are not a label. You are not your thoughts. You are the space those thoughts arise in. The sky, not the weather. The silence, not the noise. And from that place, you no longer need to prove your existence. You simply are. And that is enough. And this realization, quiet as it may seem, is the beginning of something vast. Not a destination, but a return. A falling back into what has always been waiting underneath. Because once you stop confusing yourself with the costume, once you loosen your grip on the script, you begin to feel the gentle current beneath the surface, the one that has been carrying you all along. There is no need to force awakening. There is no spiritual mountain to climb. There is only the soft undoing of everything that was never truly yours. Alan Watts reminded us again and again, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. And that's what this path becomes. Not a conquest, but a stillness. Not a doing, but a dissolving. A quiet trust in the intelligence of life. To strip away what is false and reveal what is real. When you rest in the witness, you discover that peace isn't something you achieve. It's what remains. When you stop trying to become, you begin to live from wholeness. Not from fear, not from lack, not from the desperate hope that someone, somewhere, will finally make you feel complete. Because now you know, you were never incomplete. You were just looking in the wrong direction. Not out there, but in here, in the breath, in the pause between thoughts, in the presence that asks for nothing, yet contains everything. This is the essence beneath all teachings. This is the truth that cannot be taught, only remembered. And not remembered with the mind, but with the soul. So sit with yourself, not to fix, not to improve, just to remember. Not who you should be, not who they told you to be, but who you've always been. Beneath the noise, you are not a name. You are not a past. You are not your successes or your failures. You are the awareness holding it all. Vast, silent, alive. And the more you live from that place, the less there is to prove. And the more there is to be. And being here, truly here, is the most radical thing you can do. Because in a world obsessed with becoming, being is an act of quiet rebellion, no longer driven by the need to arrive. You begin to notice that life was never asking you to conquer it, only to receive it. You feel the richness in ordinary things, the weight of your own breath, the rhythm of your steps, the warmth in a passing glance. Not because they are extraordinary, but because you finally are. You are no longer waiting for some future version of yourself to be worthy of peace. You are no longer negotiating with the present moment, asking it to be different before you allow yourself to rest. This is the surrender that doesn't weaken you. It liberates you. Because essence cannot be chased. It's not found in what you add to your life. It emerges in what you're willing to release. The fear, the roles, the comparison, the striving, they all fall quiet in the light of true presence. And in that quiet, you remember something ancient. You are not separate. You are not alone. You are not behind. You are part of the unfolding, a note in the music, a wave in the ocean of being. Alan Watts once said, "You are the Big Bang, the original force of the universe, coming on as whoever you are." So what if your life isn't a problem to be solved, but a poem to be lived? What if your task is not to fix yourself, but to feel yourself fully? Honestly, reverently. From this place, even your pain becomes sacred. Even your uncertainty becomes a doorway. You stop asking, "What should I be?" and begin to wonder, "What is life asking me to see?" Not with the eyes of the mind, but with the stillness of the heart. And as you move through your days, you carry less armor and more wonder. You speak less from identity and more from awareness. You walk through the world, not trying to become something, but allowing yourself to dissolve into everything. And that perhaps is the real beginning. You are not your name. You are not your past. You are not the story they told about you, or the one you've told yourself. All of that can fall away, and you will still be here. Because what you are, truly, was never made of memory. It was never built by validation. It was never broken by rejection. The real you does not need defending. It does not rise or fall with opinion. It simply exists, quiet, whole, untouched. When the mask falls, you don't disappear. You return. You return to the part of you that was watching all along. Not judging, not chasing, just patiently waiting for you to remember. So let the image fall. Let the performance end. Let the noise fade into stillness. And from that stillness, you will feel it. That ancient, wordless presence that asks for nothing, but gives you everything. You don't have to become anyone. You just have to stop pretending. You're not who you think you are. You're something far more free. Arcane Praxis. Wisdom for the ones who see deeper